Thank you, everyone, for coming out to this panel, which I'm very excited to be a part of. Very excited to have our panelists here this morning and bring space as a topic to the Pacific Northwest Economic Region Summit. We're going to be talking about what it's like to do space here, and with a particular focus in Washington, but we'll talk about how that spreads throughout the region. My name is Michael Doyle. Next slide. I am president and co-founder of Space Northwest, and I'll talk about what that means in just a minute. I'll give an introduction to space in Washington and some of the things that Space Northwest as an industry organization has been collecting as things that the industry needs to thrive. And highlight for you some of the impact and opportunity that exist for space. Next slide. So if you don't know Space Northwest, we are a nonprofit, just about 3 years old, and we exist because we believe that humanity's future is in space. And the Pacific Northwest has a unique role to play in that journey, and we're here to accelerate it. Next slide. So in economic terms, what are we talking about? Well, Space Foundation just released their report on the space economy yesterday. So I had to get new slides over to Ben late last night. $613 billion is the global industry right now, and that's double what it was 10 years ago. And the projections that McKinsey has for where we're going to be in 2035, 1.8 trillion. Space Northwest has a goal of our contribution to Washington's GDP rising to 40 billion by 2040. And to put that into context, what does this look like today? Well, in Washington, there's approximately $5 billion of contribution, around 13,000 jobs, over $12 billion of investment. Capital keeps coming in. We're seeing a growth of investment interest in the region. And there are open space jobs that continue to be coming up and looking to be filled. So let's go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Cool. Giving you a little bit of a view of what the map of the region looks like. Space Northwest recently published a Washington State space map. There's over 100 companies between space companies, supporters, suppliers. And as you can see, concentration along the I-5 corridor, but also in other parts of the state as well. If you'd like to check out the map, scan the QR code or use the bit.ly link. Next slide. And from the roundtables that Space Northwest has conducted, as well as partners in the Kent Valley Association, there's themes that continue to come up. When we look at the jobs that are not yet filled, we need a unified workforce that is ready for the future. We need an R&D ecosystem that is better integrated between academia, the public sector, and industry. We need to strengthen the business connections between companies, and there's a lot of compliance overhead. Everybody's trying to figure it out on their own. What can we do to lower that burden and share infrastructure in that regard? Testing capabilities and the places where innovation can happen are also a key need. And you need space for space. There's a need for industrial facilities that can handle the kind of innovation that space companies need to do in the manufacturing, as well as for housing the workforce. And bringing it to our representatives so that they understand what's here, what the opportunities are, and we can work effectively to advocate for growth. Okay, I'm going to now switch over to the next slide and introduce our panel. I'm so excited to have this collection of individuals together because it really does show how the companies that are in Washington are able to be so diverse and represent everything from the ground to Earth orbit to the moon and beyond. And we'll be talking about what they bring to the table each. But to do a quick introduction, we have Hector Huguet from Kymeta, Lisa Rich from Explore, Kristen Smithson from Black Sky, and Jeff Thornburg from Portal. And I will let each of you introduce yourselves in detail and just tell us a little bit about your company, the journey that you've had to as a company in space in the Pacific Northwest, and how you fit into the bigger picture.
All right, you're looking at me, so I'll take that as a cue to get
starting left to right.
All right, I'll be the guinea pig this morning. So good morning, I'm Jeff Thornburg. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Portal Space Systems. We're a spacecraft development company based in Bothell, Washington, just up the road here. We're on, talking about our journey. We're 4 years old, still in startup mode. We have 21 employees and another 15 contractors working on our spacecraft we call Supernova. And so what we're selling really is the world's most rapidly maneuverable spacecraft platform that's under development right now. We're working closely with the Department of Defense, commercial companies, international, and NASA on that spacecraft system. Why is that important? It's important because we've developed decades worth of spacecraft that are very similar to if you developed an aircraft that could only fly at one altitude. Your adversaries wouldn't take very long to figure out maybe they should build aircraft that can fly at all sorts of altitudes and do it quickly. And that's kind of the world we live in space now, where we have to rethink how we develop spacecraft and how we maneuver and operate. And it's so critical to the defense mission. So that's really the focus of our company with our initial anchor customer. We've got 5 contracts with the Department of Defense and over excess of $50 million in contract value. We've recently raised a $20 million seed round that we closed in the spring, and rapidly growing the business with an expansion into a 50,000 square foot facility just down the road in Bothell from our present location. So that's a little bit of an overview, and I won't go too deep on the technical details. Why are we here in the Pacific Northwest, and our journey and how did this happen? It happened because I had now almost a 30-year career in the space industry. I've worked for the Air Force and NASA, SpaceX. I worked with Paul Allen, and recently led engineering and manufacturing at Kuiper during the development of the first 2 Kuiper sats. And my wife and I fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. I've been coming here since I was in college. My parents lived in Arlington and Bothell back in the 90s. I knew it was a place that I would love to come back to. And then when my wife decided we weren't moving ever again, it kind of helped lock that in. But then also just in a more serious tone, having been a part of SpaceX and Kuiper and the growth here in the greater Seattle area with Blue Origin initially, and then now you've got this whole anchor of engineering talent, especially around spacecraft development. It really makes the PNW an ideal location to develop in the space industry. So I think you've got a very rich talent pool, and this is the reason why Los Angeles became such a hub through decades of aerospace development, and why companies like SpaceX centered themselves there initially. I think Seattle has a very similar opportunity now, especially rallying the support around the space ecosystem that's developing and nascent right now, as Michael mentioned earlier. So that's just a few comments from me, a little bit about my background. I won't try to hog the mic too long, or I'll pass it down the line.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Lisa Rich, and I'm based here in Seattle area, Mercer Island. I moved here to be part of the space economy, the growing space economy. And prior to being in Washington State, I've been an investor and an entrepreneur with a successful internet business that led to my ability to be an investor in 300 companies, and then founded a venture firm investing in synthetic biology, robotics, drones, and space. As part of that evolution of my life, I was learning about the space sector and meeting all sorts of founders and saying, gosh, you know, the space industry has exponential potential. And with investments like Axiom Space, which is sending astronauts to the International Space Station, worth multiple billions of dollars at this point, with an investment as first investor in Umbra, which is synthetic aperture radar for satellites that's worth over $1 billion or so, and being the first investor in that, really have had a bird's eye view on the growth of this industry for over a decade. And as an entrepreneur, my business partner and I decided we were going to be founders again. So how crazy is that, after being successful and being investors and having this wonderful passive role of investing in companies, to say, well, we need to build another one, and this time it's going to be a space company. So Explore is my company. It's really taking a new, I would say, new approach to the space industry. We are not manufacturers. We are producing data. And the data that we produce happens to be from satellites. And so those satellites have to go to space. So basically, we are a company building a constellation of satellites that can produce infinite streams of proprietary data that we will sell and monetize and help to grow a marketplace that doesn't really exist today in the level that we think it can be. It's a nascent industry for space data. And as we might have seen in more recent days, with the world changing with Operation Midnight Hammer and such, maybe the news stories are starting to show you more images of from satellites that you've never seen before. So there's a lot that we can tell from an image. And I will tell you, it's a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. A picture might be worth over 1 trillion data points in the case of what we're doing at Explore. So Explore has hyperspectral satellites. This is a type of imagery that's rare, unattainable, and previously unaffordable until we tackled this challenge. Our goal is building unit profitable satellites, and those profitable satellites have to produce data that's usable and in demand. But in demand means producing data that's also affordable so that the marketplace can grow. We want any business to be able to buy data at an affordable rate, because when you monitor the Earth, you can be looking at the Earth and want to look at your specific asset daily, weekly, monthly. You want to see derivation data. You want to know what changes. In Washington State in particular, there's a lot of interest in erosion of the coastlines, maritime domain awareness, what's happening as the cruise ships are going by and damaging the coastlines. Or we want to know about wildfires. We want to know how to prevent them. The Lahore situation, volcanic activity, mudslides. All of this type of Earth observation data is attainable in a way that it hasn't been before with hyperspectral imagery. Hyperspectral is giving you the chemistry of the Earth in deep, deep detail. So with an optical image, you can look at the Earth and you can see, is this corn or is this soil? In our case, is that corn, is it ripe? Is the ready for picking? Is the soil degraded? Does it need new nitrogen added? Or if it's near a estuary or water source, is there nitrogen flowing into a water area and polluting the water? I don't know if we have Canadians here, Pacific Northwest Canadians, but we have interesting stories about how the pesticides from their potato fields flow into the Prince Edward Island area and die off. The mussels are dying off because of the pesticides from that. So all of this deep knowledge can be acquired from hyperspectral data that we are not analyzing, but we are making it available. When you see images of it, they're absolutely spectacular because each color that's appearing in an image is like the chemistry of the earth. So it's this crazy amount of colors, and each color is in the spectrum is identifying different chemistry that tells you exactly what you're looking at. So it's a really exciting field, and we're just getting started. This is a multi-sensor approach that we have, beginning with hyperspectral. And with our next satellite, we'll be doing processing on board the satellite to allow you to even hop ahead in a next gen fashion in terms of gathering data from space. You can query the satellite and then download the answer to your question. So how many ships are entering the Panama Canal? Well, in 5 minutes, we would be able to tell you the answer to that and tell you what those ships are. So this is now really leapfrogging in terms of like an internet level explosion of the type of data that we can derive from our asset in space. And as I mentioned, we're going to have a constellation of 17 satellites over the next several years. So we are just getting started, and the growth of this industry, I will tell you, the demand is there. There's validation of demand that's been pent up for 10 years. And everybody's saying, how do we get access to this data? And I will tell you that companies like Amazon Kuiper or Project Kuiper helping us solve the connectivity problem of how do we download massive quantities of data from space. All of this is going to unleash our ability to share more and have more consumption of the data in the years to come. So it's a really exciting time for us at Explore. We are doing this with a very tight team, by the way. We don't expect to be 1,000 people. We expect to be, $1 million per employee kind of company, like Apple Store. So that's how we run our business. And thank you for having me today. I look forward to sharing more answers to questions with you.
All right, I'll go next. So I'm Kristen Smithson. I am with Black Sky. I'm our VP of Production and Supply Chain. And Black Sky, I'll give an introduction to the company. We are a tier 1 imagery and intelligence provider that's based. We have 2 offices actually right here in the Seattle area. And we are providing high resolution, low latency imagery, so Earth imaging, just as Lisa was just talking about. And what I think really sets Black Sky apart, we are vertically integrated. So not only do we have our own constellation on orbit that we are actively getting images down now, we are also we have our operations center here where we're communicating with those satellites. We are designing and building our ground stations to be able to talk to those satellites. And then we do the design and build of the actual satellites, also in one of our locations right here in the Seattle area. So we have everything from the technicians that are kind of turning the wrenches. We have the engineers that are doing the design, kind of giving us that really high resolution imagery. And then we have the team that's actually talking to those satellites on orbit. We also have an entire software team that has built our platform that gives us a really high level of automation. So our customers, when they want to see an image of a particular area of interest, they can send that task to a satellite. And through an automated process, so there's not humans in the loop, that task will make it all the way to the satellite, and the imagery will come back down and be available through our platform to our customers within a 90-minute period. So that's a really fast turnaround. We have our what we call our Gen 2 constellation that's on orbit right now. But this year, we're really thrilled that we've launched the first 2 of our 3rd generation satellite, which brings us to a 35-centimeter resolution. So it's really, really clear images that we're seeing out of these first launches that we've had. We're continuing to build that constellation that we have. So that's the activity that we have going on right now. But for our customers, you know, we get the question a lot about number of satellites that you have on orbit. And we try to say like that's not what matters at the end of the day. You care about getting the data that you want. You want to see certain images. So we have customers that we can sign up through subscriptions, and they have access right away to images that they can get from our Gen 2 satellites as well as from our Gen 3 satellites. And then we have some customers that, you know, may be interested in having their own satellite. We can do that as well. But by working with our company, you have access to kind of our entire fleet right away, and then we can kind of help you build out over time. So the company has been in the area for a really long time. It's got roots going back to all the way back to satellite design or a satellite part manufacturer, and it's kind of gone through some evolution. So we've been here for, gosh, at least 20 years. And it's been, like I said, it's been through a few iterations. We now have, like I said, the 2 offices here. We also have an office in Virginia, and I would say we're not quite 50% of our employees are here in the Pacific Northwest. So we see a lot of that aerospace talent that really helps us. The engineering talent on the software side, of course, benefits us as well. Our customers, of course, we are also, like Jeff and Lisa have both talked about, you know, we have customers that we support in the intelligence and government side, but also we're seeing more and more interest internationally from having sort of their own access to these images right away. And then, of course, commercial as well. As for me, my career started at NASA. I spent some time there, and then since then, I've really been in the Pacific Northwest in a couple of different of the aerospace startups. But I like kind of the smaller company size. Similar, I suppose, to some of the other panelists we have here. Once I moved here, I'm not originally from here, but once I got here, I decided I really didn't want to leave. So I'm thrilled to see the industry continuing to grow and build out here. And we just continue to attract, I think, more and more talent to the area all the time. It's really a great place to be. I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks. So a lot of data up in space. How does that get down to the ground, right? So enter Kymeta. So Hex Huget with Kymeta, Director of Strategic Solutions. I've been with Kymeta, gosh, going on 8 years. During the early days, we were talking about Nathan Kuntz earlier, early CEO at the company during the early development, getting the technology out in the wild and getting it tested with the relevant environments. So for most of you that already know, and for folks that don't know, Kymeta is all about connectivity through satellite and LTE services, right? So Kymeta has been around since 2012 when it spun out of Intellectual Ventures. And really what that brings to bear is metamaterial science and research. In 2017, we went to market with our first iteration of our technology, providing very innovative on-the-moves communications capabilities for folks that can use it globally, right? Today, we've got a suite or a family of 4 products that satisfy different areas of, I would say, vehicle, maritime, and any place that you might need to go that might not have cellular connectivity, but you can still touch satellites, right? So having said that, we are also, we've just released a product that is very dialed in for GEO and GEO and LEO connectivity for multi-orbit, which really serves the military sector, right? So defense and DoD have been clamoring for a capability that is very resilient in contested environments. And I think that has kind of lended us to be very attractive for them to work with us, solving a lot of the pain points that they have out in the community. So I would say, we are represented, here with a tremendous, group of folks here. I mean, the region is really vibrant with a lot of the engineering and manufacturing that goes on today. And, we're very fortunate at Kymeta to leverage a lot of what is available to us. Our company has 2 sites locally in Redmond, where a lot of the rapid prototyping and engineering and software development occurs. And we also have another facility that does the vast majority of our manufacturing in Woodinville. So we had to move to Woodinville because we were just growing at a rapid pace, and we needed to expand, and it was the right fit for what we were trying to do. And so far we are 200 strong, but we are obviously growing. There's a tremendous need for our capabilities, globally. So leveraging what goes on out here, and nice to see some of the Canadian folks in the back joining us. This is a true regional area that is just ready for an explosion of growth. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Thanks so much. So you all touched on various reasons why the Pacific Northwest is a great place to be as a space company. And one of the things that we often say is that our ecosystem is a uniquely entrepreneurial one, right? If you look at other, space hubs, there's always some big Department of Defense or NASA presence. Can each of you tell us a little bit about the challenges and the opportunities that are presented by us in Washington not really having that same kind of presence?
Okay, I'll go with where angels fear to tread. So I've been in the aerospace ecosystem, like I said, for almost 30 years now. And a lot of that time was spent around Los Angeles, because that has been the traditional aerospace hub of the United States for a lot of obvious reasons. So I think there's 2 or 3 locations that get all of the love from the leadership, both local, state level, province level, and at the federal level. And that is LA, the greater Denver, Colorado area, and Washington, DC. And so one of the things that I've noticed in the 4 years since we've developed orbital space systems is how much I'm traveling to those places to educate, where some key influence lives. And I see an opportunity for the Pacific Northwest region to start to create that kind of center of influence here that doesn't really quite exist yet. I mean, we have a tremendous talent pool. We have great innovative companies doing amazing things, but it's very difficult. And if I'll use a US reference specifically, it's very difficult to get US political leadership out to Seattle to see all the things that are going on, because typically they spend their travel time in DC, Colorado, and California. So I think that's the challenge ahead. I don't mind the travel to do it today, but I do think we should at least be transparent about the political piece of this and the opportunity, as Michael asked, of what's the opportunity here. I think the opportunity is, let's get serious about supporting the space ecosystem. Let's get more of the political leadership at all levels interested in it, understand why it's important from both a defense and a commercial business growth standpoint. And that's going to really help a rising tide lifting all boats here in the PNW, because you won't have to have, especially smaller companies that don't have a ton of resources, that can't always afford to travel all over the world to have the conversations they need to gather the support that they need to grow their business or to support the overall regional ecosystem. And I think that's where we are, and that's what I would say briefly on that, and pass it to my colleagues here.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, I think we had some traction in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit when my company was based in Redmond, And I got to know the cluster of companies that were in Redmond, like Kymeta, like L3Harris. There are 12 space companies in a cluster in Redmond, and pitched that to the mayor to say, more satellites than anywhere in the world are produced in Redmond, Washington, and that's important. And she said, well, what is your, idea of how to promote this? And I said, well, we should create the Redmond Space District. And she did. So that is now acknowledged in the congressional record. The Redmond Space District is actually a way to communicate with legislators when we go to DC to say, do you understand the footprint and the financial power that's behind this and that's growing in the state of Washington? And now, ironically, since my company finished what we needed to do on the manufacturing side at our 22,000 square foot facility in Redmond, we've moved to Bellevue strategically, because as I mentioned, we're a data company and we're in the data phase of our business. So we moved to be above a next generation data center. Phenomenal that existed and that we were able to double our uplink and downlink speed just in our office by that move. But I've been asked, well, what are you going to do now when you go to DC? And to tell this story, because it's not a manufacturing story, it's a data story. And I said, well, the next phase now is to talk to the cluster of companies, Kirkland, Bellevue, all the adjacent locations, about creating the 405 space data corridor. So this is the new concept that I've been kicking around, is not that we need to just have a name for things. There's an importance to this, as I'm saying, like that what the ball rolling down the hill with the Redmond Space District has been a lot of meetings. We had Space Force coming out for a state of space industrial base at the Museum of Flight. We had them paying attention. We had legislators paying attention. So now with this new movement of creating the 405 space data corridor, this is now, as you were showing, Michael, in your map, all of the businesses along the 405 corridor, well, they head into California. All of the data centers head into California. So this now becomes a larger footprint. So I think that is just a handle, if you will, of how you can start another ball rolling, and as well an educational ball to understand that manufacturing is a part of Washington State, the data story is a part of Washington State. So that's my bit on that.
I think the thing that I'd add, I mean, I agree with all those sentiments. You also asked about sort of the benefit, and obviously I think having that core and having sort of having some of our legislators visit here and have more of a presence here is incredibly important. I think some of the benefit that we get in having such an entrepreneurial spirit is the hub of companies that we see here are the ones who really want to push those boundaries of what we've done before, and who want to take things that our much larger institutions are doing and say, how can we do this differently and how can we do this better? We do find that when we get those legislators to visit us, seeing in person makes a difference. They want to see our clean room. They want to put on the full suit and walk in there and see the hardware and see what's coming together and how we're approaching this. And it's really impactful. Those are then the conversations that we get where people go, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were doing this here. And you're doing what with how many people? You don't have 2,000 people working on getting these satellites up there. And we're like, no, we're a small company. This is it. This is where we do the design, and this is where we do the build, and this is the team. And so I think we have a lot of people in this region that are incredibly driven, incredibly skilled, are thinking outside of the box. And the more that we can come together and showcase that and get people to really see it in person, I know there's tours as part of this summit. The more we can do that, it's so impactful to just see what's happening here, and that it's not just the large companies. There's a whole ecosystem of companies that are popping up around that, or that have, been engineers that have worked at those large companies that have seen an opportunity that they weren't able to get through. And they said, you know what, I'm going to go start my own business. And so, yes, we've seen that in LA. I think we're seeing it more and more in the Pacific Northwest. And there's a huge opportunity to continue growing out those, not only like the big systems, like making the whole satellite, doing all of that, but some of those subcomponents as well, that all need to be continually improved and built upon. So those are my thoughts.
No, perfect. Yeah, this is amazing. So everything up here is completely valid. I would take it a step in the approach that Kymeta looked at, especially in addressing some of this, is bringing some of the talent that has government background. So for DoD specifically, so I'm native of Washington State. I went off and did my Air Force thing for 22 years. Loved every minute of it. Spent half my career at the NRO, so a lot of overlap. See, now working with Kymeta, I feel like I'm empowered and able to provide a lot of my acquisition background. A lot of the team that we have has decades of experience in the programmatic side of the house. They can articulate those, understand the culture, the mission, and be able to distill some of those requirements down to the fundamental level where, government folks can take that message back on the Hill or back to their work centers and really apply what we're bringing to the table. And be able to, onboard that into effective mission, capabilities. And having said all that too, this is all important because in the Pacific Northwest, we're very agile up here, just as the folks are down in LA or Colorado or even Florida, right? We are growing, and I think we're a space force to be reckoned with, if I can say that. I think we leverage a lot of the know-how from the commercial side and apply it to what we can agilely deliver to the government. And in some cases, a lot faster than even some of the government folks can write and articulate the requirements. And not only that, but we can continually iterate and get better and faster. And so that's, again, a testament to the commitment of the Pacific Northwest and what we bring to the table. Thanks.
If I could foot stomp one thing real quick, because it's really important. I don't think we can emphasize enough how government officials typically can't play favorites, right? So they won't take trips just to one company. And so I'm going to say it out loud, like between the leadership, the community leadership, the political leadership, and the business leadership, we have to have more organizations like Lisa was talking about, where we can aggregate the interest and bring the people, because seeing is believing. Once you get people to your facility to do the things that you're hearing about up here, it changes the game. And so you wouldn't believe this probably coming out of my mouth, but I don't think a truer word is spoken, which is, if you can't get them here to see it, they're never going to believe it. So the hardest thing to do is to get them here to make the effort. And because you have to take that, well, we can't just come see you. Great. Then let's work harder, with people in this room to facilitate those types of things that get them here in a way that turns I can't into yes, I think.
I'm glad you're commenting on that, because the wide area group is the requirement that you cannot, even though we have relationships directly with all the agencies and the people at the agencies, they cannot just come out to visit, explore. So we have to have a larger, capability of like event. And we thought that the Mission Accelerator Center, which had some fanfare a few years ago about this is going to be where defense is going to come in and this is where legislators are going to visit. And that seemed to have petered out. But there's a location there. There's a meeting place that exists for this type of activity that I think has been underutilized. But now that we have these umbrella ideas of like, let's come and learn about the companies in the Redmond Space District. Let's learn about the companies comprising that today and tomorrow, the Space Data Corridor. These are reasons to come to the state of Washington. And we have people that say, we're going to come for 45 minutes. They do not want to leave. This is what you're talking about, is when you start learning about what's going on inside these companies, and your mind is expanded to understand the importance of the space sector and the data we're bringing back, the incredible imagery we're bringing back, the incredible connectivity that we have. it's mind blowing, truly. And it's so exciting to be a part of this industry. We want to share this with more legislators. We want to share this with more folks that are stakeholders and that can be advocates for us. So everyone's welcome here to come and visit.
Can I add one thing? Because
Go
we have
for it.
4 US space companies here, and I think we keep referring to legislators, but just to emphasize, I mean, we are certainly looking to host US government, but we are also, Black Sky in particular, I know, I mean, I can speak for Black Sky rather. Some of our international partners are leading the way and are showing the most interest in some of the capability that we have here. And so it's not just hosting the US government, but really being able to host our international partners too, as seamlessly as possible. And to your point, I mean, we've had visitors at our facility that say, well, how long do I need to allow at the airport? Because I think I could stay a little bit longer. So, you know, the faster we can get through airport security too is.
So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. The Space Northwest is involved in some of these things. Last year during Seattle Space Week, we hosted the State of the Space Industrial Base workshops for Seattle with our partners, New Space Nexus, the Defense Innovation Unit, Air Force Research Lab, and Space Force, as you had mentioned. That's returning for Space Week. Coming up the first week of October, I think it's October 9th that we'll be having those workshops. And both last year and this year, space company tours in the Redmond area and in Kent were part of that. So, work to be done. Okay, another interesting thing that came up during your comments there were that a lot of the jobs that we saw and a lot of the activity is from some of these large companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, Amazon Kuiper. We've deliberately chosen a group that represents that more grounds up entrepreneurial bend. But can you tell us a little bit about how those quote unquote big oaks in the forest here benefit the ground up startups?
I'll
Go
kick
for
it
it.
off real quick. So we'll go backwards. So in my mind, it really comes down to these large companies are the talent conduit, right? So you've got tremendous programs and systems that are being delivered, traditional systems that are being deployed globally. And I think you had actually mentioned it, the fact that folks get tremendous amount of experience and breadth wide know-how of how to really operate in the space, the literal space, and it drives a lot of the innovation to spin out some of these new startups. I would say Kymeta is maybe one of those companies. I think we have a bunch of folks who come from wide swath companies, large companies in the local area and from afar, and it really attracts the talent. And I think that's one of the major ways that I think we benefit from these large companies. So yeah.
Yeah, I to add, I would say, I've been fortunate enough to see like the beginning of, I worked in the government, U.S. government, and then I worked in kind of what the traditional aerospace primes were. And then I've been fortunate to watch the kind of birth of this commercial space industry, as they call it. I think what SpaceX and Blue Origin specifically will be most known for long term, regardless of whatever success they have, short, medium term, will be having seeded this next generation of engineering and space related talent, right? Because we've inspired a whole new generation of people, including myself, to go out and do the next thing. And I'll give you an example. With launch specifically and Falcon 9 development at SpaceX, you've been able to innovate something that now has opened up more opportunity for lower cost access to low Earth orbit and other orbits in general. So now that's created an opportunity for all of these companies up here and on many others to exist, because now you've turned it within a commercial price point's reach to operate in the space domain. And so I think those two things are feeding each other. You've got the talent pools being seeded by, SpaceX and Blue and others. And then you've got, this whole thing happening where you're putting downward pressure on pricing that's opening up new opportunities that never existed before, which is going to drive more entrepreneurs in, because the number of opportunities for new grads in space is like nothing I've ever seen before, and certainly much wider than when I graduated with my bachelor's in aerospace engineering, and even in my master's degree, where you're either going to work for the government, Boeing or Lockheed or Northrop Grumman. And now you've got so many more options. I can't even express how exciting that is for younger folks coming into the industry right now.
Just to touch on the one point that I think we can't ignore, which is it does make it makes it hard for small companies sometimes to compete against the pay for some of those employees. What we find, though, I think, to the entrepreneurial spirit that we have here, and of course, just with the growth of those companies over time, is that we see there's people who go through evolutions in their career where they find that they want to do something different. And so you might get some incredible experience at one of the large companies, but it's in a very specific area. And we find that people are moving to those smaller entrepreneurial companies going, well, I want to wear multiple hats. I want to feel more empowered to change the way that we're doing X, Y, Z. And so you have to compete differently. But there are times, I think, that especially as like the smaller, more entrepreneurial companies, I mean, you're competing on job offers and for the same talent against some of these companies that are, it's just very, very challenging to compete against that. And so you look for the person who has the mindset of they want a more broad range of experience, or they want to see something go a little bit more quickly than they might see it elsewhere. But the pay itself can be a challenge.
Completely agree with that. It is maybe the biggest challenge is that they're going to compare one-to-one what they could do at a multi-billion-dollar company. But ultimately, it's a culture question. What is the culture that individual is seeking, and what type of career path are they seeking? We have employees from SpaceX. We have employees from Maxar. They weren't able to have the agency that they have working at Explore, to own and have ownership over a whole exciting new process and foundational, work that they're doing to build the future success of a company. That's exciting. So that's the right fit for what the hires at Explore. Right now, we're looking for software developers, looking for people with more project management experience, but not managers, doers, builders, thinkers, people that actually are on their feet solving problems, and they get up every day saying, I'm a problem solver. Those are the types of people that we hire. Those are maybe the type of people that might not be a fit at a larger company where they don't have as much control over what they do every day and what their expectations are.
I also think that in my experience, people are hungry to leave mind-numbing bureaucracy. And I think to the salary question, I would offer that as a counterpoint, that there's a tremendous amount of talent that's tired of the technocracy and some of the things that are going on in the tech industry at some of these larger tech companies. And they want a reset, as some have mentioned up here. And the money is less important than how you treat the employees in general. And I think this region of the country specifically, and I've lived a lot of different places, does a much better job at how they welcome and treat each other culturally in a community. And I think that translates into the business environment in Pacific Northwest as well. So I think you can be just as competitive when you have a company culture that is supportive of the employees and gives them elements that, yes, they could go other places to make more money, but they're never going to have those companies treat them the way they could be treated working at a smaller to medium-sized company in the Pacific Northwest doing these types of things.
Fabulous. Thank you. Wow, we're moving pretty quick through our time. I want to toss a couple questions for you all individually, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Hex, your piece of the overall ecosystem, the ground segment, is often overlooked. I'm wondering if you can comment on some of the opportunity there and the challenges, and how cross-sector innovation with some of your main customers, particularly defense, plays into what you do.
Sure, it's a great question, because that question has followed me from my government days to today, right? You know, everybody looks up at the sky at all these amazing, exquisite systems, and the last mile is the ground piece that needs to get all the ones and zeros from space down to the ground and back. And I think we've been very fortunate to, you know, be forward-leaning as a company to work with a lot of the, you know, companies locally, a lot of the government spaces, international partners that need connectivity, whether it be, you know, for mobility on the ground or maritime applications, or even some of the, you know, factors that include wildfires or humanitarian efforts, right, or defense. It's been pretty amazing to work cross collaboratively with a lot of these companies. You know, I think one of the things that is pretty amazing is the amount of skill set and development that's here in the Pacific Northwest. And we've talked about how folks can branch out into different areas and gain, you know, tremendous experience, and can take that to another company. And even before we started off, I was chatting with somebody earlier about how we're such a small community that we are bound to meet somebody that we know at a different company, and they're doing amazing, innovative things somewhere else, and they may stay there for a few years and move somewhere else. So, you know, we've got, you know, at Kymeta, the opportunity for folks to get a lot of hands-on experience, whether it's the assembly of the terminals themselves, to setting up networks out in the wild, so to speak, working with folks who need communications in some very austere locations. So, and again, this whole ecosystem works very collaboratively together. And finally, growth, right? So we need to be the loudest champions of our own, you know, space innovation, and we need to bring a lot more folks up here from the government space to better understand what we're doing here, because it's very surprising how quickly the light goes on, that a lot of folks don't realize how fast we're moving up here. And it's good to have them take that message back to say, you know, we really need to consider what's going on. How does that tie into a lot of the mission sets that we can certainly support?
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Jeff, Portal's building a new infrastructure for in-space transport. What are the opportunities for new business models that you see, and do you see impact to the Pacific Northwest region on the back of those?
Yeah, great question, Michael. So I think the things that I see around what we're doing is, if I piggyback on an earlier comment, I said launch has come down to where now we can really look at what can we do on orbit, and what are the challenges still left. And the biggest challenge is you know, all of the folks up here with me do incredible things, both on orbit and on the ground. But for those things to happen, you need to move quickly to a position on orbit to actually get that data that you want. And we don't have great speed in that domain. So, you know, what we're doing is developing a platform that has rapid movement to those positions of interest in ways that aren't possible now. And then we have a very flexible payload deck that allows us to integrate a variety of different payloads quickly for all sorts of different types of mission sets. And so that really less about me giving you a commercial and more about setting the stage for what is the opportunities does that type of thing create. because we won't be the only company that's chasing those types of things. You know, from a component manufacturer standpoint, I think there's a lot of myth and legend around tech companies that are vertically integrated and they make all their stuff themselves. That's great if you're a nano manager, not micromanager that wants to think they're going to control everything. But it's not always the most cost efficient approach, and sometimes not even the best schedule approach. And I say all that to mean that there's a great supply chain ecosystem in the Pacific Northwest that's going to benefit from new spacecraft platforms like what Portal is doing and some of the other platforms that are providing data sets. But to really push the edge, and if I delve into defense for a quick second, what we're doing with mobility is solving a direct defense need right now. And they've known that for a long time. And you're finally starting to see traction in budgets and decision making to bolster defense applications on orbit. The reason is our adversaries are out there actively right now as we sit here trying to deny our capabilities on orbit from a defense and military standpoint. So for us to be able to sell data and acquire data commercially and profit from it and grow an ecosystem, we first have to protect and defend those locations so we can actually use it for that. And I'm a huge proponent of that philosophy because that's been the whole history of North American space and defense evolution since the dawn of the space program. Defense leads, commercial businesses follow. That's how it's always been. I believe that's how it will always be. Regardless of the request for let's have a bunch of commercial companies exist and then pick and choose what we like from a defense standpoint, I don't believe that's a viable path personally. I think you have to have some capabilities that are squarely defense focused because those applications are directly applicable to the commercial businesses that follow. And I think for both, to Michael's direct question, both on the defense and the commercial side, there's huge upside potential that's going to benefit the whole Pacific Northwest ecosystem, from the spacecraft builders to the payload providers to the data centers to the ground C2 command and control communication and data retrieval. All of that's represented in the 4 people up here, and there'll be so many more businesses like this grow and evolve. And because that's where the investment's coming, and it's coming not only from the US, but I've traveled internationally quite a bit this year, and I can tell you the demand from Europe and the AUKUS and the allied NATO countries, they're clamoring for making larger and larger investments. And they're looking for places all over the world where they can place those investments and bring new capabilities sovereignly to their nation. And I think that also is being underestimated and underlooked right now. But for all those reasons, you know, one of the reasons we're so excited at Portal about bringing new spacecraft capability, because it will benefit every single person up here on this stage, and it'll benefit every other company that supports that type of application in the broader community.
Thanks so much. And thanks for touching on vertical integration and supply chain. Kristen, can you tell us about what you see as the benefits that Black Sky sees from having this local aerospace chain, and what are some of the challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. Black Sky, I think, you know, as I mentioned, we do we build the satellites here. And so we are outsourcing components from a number of different places. And some of those are incredibly specific things that only a few companies provide. And so we can't always get everything right here. But we do find that there's a number of companies that we can go to for tests and various subcomponents that are local, and we try to stay local as much as we can. And we do see that there's that depth of experience from the long history of aerospace, not just the space side, but also, of course, the aero side in the Pacific Northwest, where those companies are familiar with the quality standards that we need and, you know, the level of detail that you have to use to be able to have our equipment ready to go and survive its flight to space and its lifetime there. I think there's obviously like continued opportunity to continue to bring more of that in where we can. I think we see a number of those subsystems that we're still going to LA or we're going kind of elsewhere for. And As we see some of those entrepreneurs coming out of those larger companies, there's still opportunity to build up more of that here in the Pacific Northwest. But from the production and supply chain side too, I think, we have a number of people who know what they're doing to be working on spacecraft, to be following kind of the very specific and detailed tests that we need to do. There's crossover that they have from the aero history. We've seen people from the medical field. I think that's another panel that's going on right now. And there's still an interesting crossover there of a highly regulated industry, highly detail oriented, where you can kind of find that cross-pollination. So I think there's more opportunity where we can continue to grow here. But where we can, I mean, we certainly are benefiting from being in this region with such a depth of history in supporting the aerospace industry.
Great. Lisa, we've heard a lot about the things that are great about the Pacific Northwest and some of the challenges around engaging government and ways to solve that. What are other challenges that you see as a space company in Washington?
Well, in Washington State, I mean, Jeff was mentioning the defense side of things, and we're all tied to, I think all of us here have had government contracts. So can we help accelerate what's going on in Washington, D.C.? There's been a lot of fallout from the, current administration changes that have taken place in the space sector. So it's fallout, meaning like agencies that have had people that are there and then not there, which leads to a lack of continuity. So that lack of continuity of contacts, of programs that freeze and then disappear for 3 months, websites that are frozen, we have seen it all. And, even to the point where we've been advised that, there's a program coming up and then nothing, for 3 months. So for early stage businesses that have to have a continuity of business, and thankfully in our case, we're commercially focused, not 100% focus on government, we're not entirely got our hands behind our backs because of this problem. But it is a problem because we're all independently working on getting contracts moving, getting different programs running, and even programs of record have been upheld, right? So it's this industry, there's nothing like it. I just, in this past week, I've talked to 2 founders that told me, well, we had a $90 million contract that just went away. We had a, $50 million contract that just went away. If you're a business that has to make up for that in other ways, you figure it out, but other businesses might not survive. So like I said, in our case, we have a lot of different levers that we can push to have productivity and have a stream of revenue and stability. But it's hard to have a stable business when you're facing challenges that are external to you in this way. So maybe I'm getting off the topic a little bit, but Washington, like that message needs to be heard in Washington and heard in DC.
Thanks. Okay. We've got 20 minutes left, and I'm going to pull some questions from the Whova, and then take a couple from the audience here for those who are not quite as plugged into the technology. Since this is oh, look at that. Thanks so much, Ben. Except that it just closed. Thank you. Since this is the Pacific Northwest Economic Region conference, let's talk about Alaska. And I'll ask one person to grab each of these questions and respond. What opportunity or role do you see for Alaska space assets? and the University Federal Geophysical Data Downlink and Processing Facilities. That's a lot.
I would just say Alaska, we've got the pipeline, we've got the oil and gas industry interested in monitoring that. There's also the maritime domain awareness, very important to be knowing what's happening on the shores. So that would be a part of data applications.
I was just going
Go
to
ahead.
add, yeah, so Kymeta has spent a lot of time up in Alaska, working with a lot of the, folks who need polar orbiting, constellation availability. And what we found that with our multi-orbit terminal, we can connect to sovereign networks. We can connect to whatever's available in that spectrum to bring, throughput to little villages, fishing villages out in the middle of nowhere, right? That might not have the ability to stay connected. We've worked with a lot of the DoD as well, a lot of the federal agencies that need super high latitude connectivity, and we're able to deliver up there very, very effectively because of the low Earth, constellation that we're partnered with OneWeb, right? So their true polar orbiting constellation up there really gets the job done up there. So we're pretty happy to be supporting that up there.
Cool. Another question from Huva. And I'm going to kind of combine a couple of them. The workforce talent pipeline. Do you foresee a future shortage? Did some of the recent Boeing layoffs help? Do you see the need to emphasize, in the next generation, not just the STEM and degrees, but also the kind of trades part of the manufacturing equation?
There's a lot there, but I think what was the first part of that question again? I got stuck on the last one.
Did the Boeing
Oh, yeah,
layoffs help?
that was the one that got my attention. So I think there's definitely a difference in talent between the aviation and the space industry. They're not always mutually compatible. So I think in my experience, the space jobs tend to be sustained by other space companies, not necessarily the Boeings of the world, and specifically Boeing Aviation. But I think the growth opportunities are certainly in the manufacturing space because if you're building a growth space business, it has to get past the development phase at some point to be viable and sustainable. So you're developing hardware, you're developing your data products, you have to scale those sales. You're not going to live off of venture capital forever, and certainly not debt financing. So you need to have revenue generation, and you get that through production and development if you're in the hardware side of the business specifically. So I think that to the question of the trades, certainly on the technician workforce, and I think we're moving into a world, well, at least I'm planning to with my business, where we have this old stodgy mentality that if you don't have an engineering degree, you can't work at a space company. So let me just call out what I think is embedded in some of that question. And if I have that wrong, I'm happy to talk to the person later on. But that's not an absolute anymore in my mind, right? There's plenty of talented people from all walks of life at all education levels that want to come to the space industry. They talk to me every day. I don't have this engineering degree, but is there a place for me in this business? I really am excited about space. I want to get in this industry. How do I do that? So the excitement level of the space industry in general is at an all-time high. And so I think industry needs to embrace this idea of how do we take that and capture that energy and bring that talent in and not have these antiquated filters that if you don't have a mechanical, electrical, or aerospace engineering degree, there's not a place for you. So I see other small and medium-sized business also moving in that direction. I think you don't see that as much in the larger companies, but I personally feel to the question that there's lots of places to play, lots of opportunities are going to develop. And as these smaller and medium-sized companies like mine start to grow, that's going to be the largest hiring area for me personally in the next 2 years is going to be in the tech and manufacturing space, as we start to produce multiple spacecraft a year. That's just, and we're not the only space company in that position in the Pacific Northwest.
Fantastic. Okay, any questions from the audience? Got a hand up there. Mic's on the way.
As probably all of you know, in 2018, Governor Hickenlooper gave Maxar $14 million to move Maxar Intelligence to Boulder, or Westminster, but Boulder. Colorado Office of Economic Development funds 10 new programs a year. The mayor, Mike Johnson of Denver, is part of the Colorado Air and Space Port. There's also the Colorado Space Coalition or Consortium, whatever it is. The governor, Polis, goes out and meets with space people all the time. Excuse me. So how's it going in Washington? What kind of love are you getting from the state here?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Because we have friends in Colorado that have startups where they've been given free rent for a year. They've been given free employees, but effectively, my understanding is they could have an employee for 6 months and have that funded. That's incredible. We aren't seeing any of that here. We're seeing constant surveys demanding us to tell us everything about their business for the economic group, and like laborious surveys we keep getting threatening that we're going to be like fined if we don't answer questions about our psychological status of our founders. Like what is this? Like we get surveys. I should do a LinkedIn post. It's crazy. That is not helping business. It's not helping business expand. So yeah, these incentive programs that we see in Colorado are, we're envious, I would say.
We're also constrained in Washington constitutionally from replicating programs that are just like that. And so that's why we seek other ways to do it. But it's not easy.
I just offer a little different take, I guess, in that as we've grown the last couple of years, we've seen great interest in the Department of Commerce in Washington State and the governors to help figure out where they want to go to support the space industry. I don't know that they have all the answers yet, to be fair, but at least my personal experience has been an incredible amount of curiosity from a lot of the staff there, and a lot of support to us within the bounds of what they can do right now. So is there more we can do? I would say absolutely yes, there is. I am also envious of what other states do, because when my company was much smaller, I would have loved to have free rent and free people. That is a great thing. But I think assessing, the time to assess is over. The time to take action is now. The opportunity to grow the PNW ER with space, there's no better time like the present. So I think it's time to take actions on how we want to support these businesses within the bounds of the law. They might not look like other states, but let's just do it. There's plenty of people up on this stage and other companies here and throughout Canada that could provide lots of feedback, I think.
Do we have a question up front? Okay, in the back.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Smith with the Washington State Microenterprise Association, and this question may be a little bit off. Excellent presentation this morning. I'm curious about your insights around space diplomacy, how we together collectively manage or look at space debris or workforce development by private companies who own the air and water of employees in space. Are you thinking about those questions? Do you know where folks go to learn more? What is your insights?
Before you walk too far away from her, I guess I would like to ask a clarifying question. Like, what is the like layer underneath that question? Like, from a diplomacy standpoint, what really are you driving at?
space ethics.
Okay,
And- Well,
that-
and just looking at the Artemis Accords and where they're trying to go.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
following you now. Yep. So I work with an organization called the Creative Destruction Lab based out of the University of Toronto and Rotman School of Business. And I work with Commander Chris Hadfield, who was very instrumental in the Artemis Accords and, or not the Artemis Accords with NASA, but some the new space Magna Carta that the King was working and involved in some of that other stuff. So I'm familiar with what you're driving at a little bit there. I guess what I would say is it's the wild, wild west on orbit is my honest answer to your question. We have this outdated treaty from 1967 that nobody pays attention to anymore, and nobody cares. We have our adversaries doing things that are unimaginable to the average citizen, and they're so classified, no one will ever know. So the bottom line is there is no diplomacy in space because everybody's doing whatever they want. So I think until the nations of the world decide they don't want to put up with that anymore, we have an opportunity, instead of me complaining about it, we have an opportunity to, I think, up our game between, with all of our North American and allied friends to apply what value system do we want on orbit. And I think, I love your question because I spent 7 years active duty in the Air Force. I've spent a lot of time working with the military over the years. I have some friends who are general officers that spend a lot of time on doctrine and force projection and soft power and friends in the State Department. And I think I love your diplomacy question because it's one that irritates me personally is where is the accountability in society on anything anymore? But I'm not going to go there. But what I will go to is on orbit and space, we lack any guidelines, we lack any accountability. And I think historically the military had to project power and the State Department had to project soft power. And that's in the US, but all of the defense and State Departments of all the allied nations had to project a deterrent so that our value system can be applied on air, land, and sea. And the same thing needs to happen on orbit. But I can tell you for a fact, and all you got to do is pick up the newspaper every day, we are being challenged on orbit every single hour of every single day. So the public should make no mistake about that fact, and then they should care about it greatly because every citizen needs to ask themselves, what value system do you want to see reflected in our space activities? Is it ours or is it another country's? Is it our allies or another set of countries that want to do something? So I love your question. I don't have a great answer to it other than I agree it should be a concern and we definitely need to do more about it. But from my own personal opinion standpoint, Wild Wild West 2.0 right now.
I'll just throw in a little bit of an event plug. If you are interested in space diplomacy, the Space Diplomacy Symposium will be happening in Seattle, November 7th. It is growing into becoming the Davos for space. So I encourage you, if that's your interest, to be there. Okay. One more question, and I think we're going to be out, right?
National U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. I founded that in state of Colorado 20 years back. So it's our 20th anniversary. We just started the Northwest India Chamber of Commerce here and launched it in March of 19. And I just wanted to say that what is happening in Colorado is mainly because of Colorado being a defense and aerospace hub. Washington comes there all the time. But I have been on the Governor's Advisory Council, on Mayor's Advisory Council, and also appointed by Secretary of Commerce for growth and policy making of 8 million businesses. So with that being said, I feel like policies are made to be changed also. So state of Washington, I think, Joseph, you should be answering your own question. I'm teasing him, he's a friend. But right, because he was in state of Washington. So we do need help with our state officials. But at the same time, Washington, D.C. will definitely come here if we show what we can do here collectively. And I feel like center of excellence, India could be a very good partner. So any of your commercial needs with India, we would like to bring joint venture center of excellence here with India, since India is progressing in the space industry so much. So please do let us know how we can collaborate and help you with your commercial needs with India, as well as grow the region for job creation and bring those incentives and the dollars that are required to be here in state of Washington. I think this is an excellent place. The Northwest region must grow. Anything I can do to help, I offer my help to you. Thank you.
Okay. Any final comments from any of our panelists? Okay,
I'm
Heck.
going to jump in with the last.
Yeah, go for it.
So as you've seen or heard, there is, I think, maybe a void. And we need to have a little bit more representation from maybe Space Force, Air Force, whoever that focal point is to bring that discussion. We need to have a little bit more representation like Los Angeles does, like, Colorado got at least 5 or 6 different bases there, right? You've got launch facilities out in Florida. And so DC, obviously, that is a must do. We have to go out there to be heard, but it would be tremendous to have a representative or some organization that could kind of anchor some of those innovations that we bring to the table and get that, operationally, utilized. So that'd be my personal request. On a more from a Kymeta perspective, I would love to see, or we would love to see, a little bit more open or architecture. We are all about multi-orbit and being able to provide multi-data paths to those end users. We would love to see the ability to have not just Kuiper, but SpaceX and OneWeb all working collaboratively in some fashion, so that like our cell phones, where we can roam internationally, we can take our terrestrial tools and have them be able to be used anywhere in the world. So hopefully that can happen in the next 5 years.
Go for it, Lisa.
Just wanted to comment that the World Affairs Council was kind of instrumental in pulling Explore in on an opportunity with 14 different representatives, experts in the environmental and climate space and science, to visit Explore a few months ago. And it was wonderful because we will work with really, our business is global. So we have maybe 50% of our customer base will be Europe. We expect emerging countries to have an interest, NGOs to have an interest. We have commercial customers, we have national security, NGO, nonprofit, really any type of a customer can work with Explore. So that includes even small nations and emerging space agencies and their interest in satellite data. So we really appreciated that outreach from World Affairs Council. That was unique because it wasn't a wide area group. They did have an event, but we were a part of something there, and we just welcome more of that outreach.
World Affairs Council is one of our partners for Seattle Space Week with Space Northwest. And if anyone is interested in collaborating with us, by all means, please get in touch with me. Okay. I think that's a wrap. A round of applause for our fabulous panelists.